Hello and welcome to the home of the Ghost Hour, and we're back for another one of our Total Warhammer 3 faction focuses. We're going in alphabetical order and we're now currently on Norsca. And as said in our Khorne video, it is a bit more of a challenge than the other factions. With the recent release of the roadmap showing new legendary lords, legendary heroes that are potentially coming over the next 12 months, the recent release of Harry the Hammer for Warriors of Chaos, and being a huge fan of Total Warhammer and also Warhammer Fantasy Battle, which I've been playing since about 1992, I thought it'd be interesting to see who else we might see in the game in the future. Now, decades of lore, hundreds of books means there are loads of characters that you could fill these lists up with, and I've tried to narrow it down where possible to either the most famous or more particular those that had models or rules in army books. Now, as we said in our Khorne one, it's a bit confusing across Chaos right now about where things sit. So you've kind of got these mono-god factions which are demon-focused, but there's also a Demons Undivided faction. You've got the Warriors of Chaos, who have both Undivided and then dedicated to Chaos God faction. So you've got Archaon and Kolek, for example, Undivided, and then you've got Sigvald and Valkyr, Slaanesh and Khorne, dedicated factions. And then you've got Norsca, who is a very different faction with very different units, but sticks on the Undivided. But if you go into a lot of the lore and stories, most of the Norscan tribes are actually dedicated to a Chaos God, and there's very few Undivided ones. So, Norsca, what do we currently have? Well, we currently got Wulfric the Wanderer, and we got Throg. So, we've only got two lords. Norsca definitely needs a rework in terms of where it is and how it feels. And with that, you go, well, okay, well, we could have some additional lords to try and, flip things up a bit, make, the faction play a little bit different. So, okay, let's see what we've got. Well, we go through in terms of the famous ones. There's no book around, or army book around Norsca. There's, Wulfric the Wanderer's been in a book, and Throg's been in a book, but not a Norsca book. It's all been wrapped up with Chaos. So, when we look at it as a faction in itself, who have we got? Well, we've got Morcar the Uniter. He was the first ever chosen. Doesn't really fit with the timeline, though, especially with Archaon being the 13th ever chosen, and therefore I wouldn't advise putting Morcar in. Morkin, he was essentially a Norscan chieftain who's, when he was young, his village was destroyed by the Elector Count of Ostland, if I require, von Raukov. He then essentially eventually rose to power enough to launch an invasion. He gets through Kislev, he actually gets to Ostland, he kills von Raukov, but because he doesn't want to become a slave to the ruinous powers, he lets himself be killed after he achieves his vengeance. So an interesting character, but not necessarily one that I would like to focus on in the game. I think Egil Styrbjorn would be an interesting one. The Scalings are in the game. He is High Jarl of the Scalings. He is known to worship Khorne, though, so you go, okay, now where does he fit? Is he a Khorne-dedicated Norscan? Does he go into the Khorne faction? Who knows? For me, I don't think there's anything wrong, like Warriors of Chaos, in having Norscans who are dedicated to a particular Chaos God. So I think Egil Styrbjorn, the Scalings being a faction already in the game absolutely could be in there. You've got Avkael the Aceling, Bloodfather of the Acelings. Do we need another Khorne one? I think I'd prefer Egil than him. If we're just going to have sort of one Khorne one, which is what I would do. I wouldn't have lots of the same, but he's a potentially, the Acelings are in the game as well. So as the Bloodfather of the Acelings, he could be in there. Lost Ericsson, I think, is almost one that definitely should be in there. You got Skeggy, they're in Lustria. It's a minor faction right now. I would think it would be really interesting to have a legendary lord in that faction. The story of Lost Ericsson, he's a legendary Norscan warrior, essentially, who's an explorer, kind of got lost. went out to discover the mysterious continent of Lustria, which he obviously did, and established the outpost there. So, I think Lost Ericsson is definitely one that I would like to see as a legendary lord in Norsca. Valnir the Reaper, that's an interesting one. When you think about, where the Norskans, again, we've got this Nurgle champion. You've got, does he fit within Nurgle? Does he fit within Norsca? I think he could easily be in Norsca. He did have plenty of wars in Norsca as well. So, I think, and Valnir is a well-known character. I mean, Valnir the Reaper is a well-known character. I think the question just is, where does he fit? Does he fit as a Nurgle chieftain in Norsca, or does he fit in the Nurgle faction? I don't know. You've also got Valgar the Butcher, who was a Norscan Chaos Lord. I think what makes Valgar interesting, he's a Norscan Lord who was famous for raiding the Tomb Kings. So does that mean actually there's an opportunity now to put a Norscan in the Tomb King area? I think that could be really quite interesting. So, he battled against Cetra for like 5 years or so. So I think, that could be a really, really good one of a Norscan in the Tomb King area, Valgar the Butcher. So I think there's definitely, there's 4 there that are of interest that I could see going in. Lost Ericsson, definitely top of the pile. But Egil Styrbjorn as a Khorne, Valnir the Reaper as a Nurgle. There's others that you could choose for Tzeentch and Slaanesh if you wanted, and do a kind of Warriors of Chaos DLC. But I'd really quite like to see Valgar the Butcher as well, having a Norscan Lord in the Tomb King area. I think they would all offer something different and interesting. In terms of current heroes, well, you've got Knut the Bloody. He was a Khorne champion in the army as Asavar Kurl. You've got Einar Sigdanson. He's a Tzeentch champion, so maybe he actually becomes a lord if you're doing your Warriors of Chaos style DLC with 4 lords, one of each flavour. You've got Garma. He was a mighty champion of Khorne, and the interesting thing with him is he actually fought Gotrek Gunnarsson, and is known to be the only person that Gotrek's ever fought that could match him in skill in an equal fight. So I think that one's quite interesting as a legendary hero. And then you've also got Engra Deathsword. He was one of 3 Norscan lieutenants of Asavar Kurl. So, it just depends on how they're going to do the faction. If you're going to have to pick a legendary hero, I think it'd be quite cool to have Engra Deathsword in there. Though, if you were going to start making a Khorne, Slaanesh, Tzeentch, Nurgle, Chieftain, Warriors of Chaos style DLC, then you might go with Garma as your legendary hero. For example, so because of his fighting ability on his own, I think that would be quite interesting. So, Norsca, a bit of an odd one, difficult to know where it's going forward, but I think there's definitely some possible lords in there, even some undivided lords if they're keeping it that way with Lost Ericsson and Valgar the Butcher. So that's my take on Norsca. As I say, the whole of Chaos is in a bit of an odd place because of the way it is laid out at the moment with the individual demon factions, Norsca, Warriors of Chaos, and how it's being represented in the game as opposed to how it's kind of represented in the past as army books and so on. Hope you've enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't know, give it a thumbs down and let me know why in the comments down below. And as always, if you want to see more content, then please hit that subscribe button. It's free for you to do, and it means a lot for me. And if you disagreed with anything I've said here, or you think there should be other characters added to the roster as lords or heroes, then please put it in the comments down below, and we can have a good discussion on who and why you think they should be there. You've been watching The Ghost Owl. I'll see you very soon.